Hello, my name is John Beck. I'm a professor at Texas State University, and today we want to talk some about teachers' STEM recruitment and retention. That's a popular topic, and we want to discuss it to some degree today. I want to talk about three items related to retention and recruitment of teachers, the challenge that exists, some pockets of success that we're seeing across the nation, and then what the future may hold as we try to recruit more teachers into the STEM field. The problem is an old one. It's at least 50 years old. Way back in the early 60s, from the Sputnik area, there was a great desire to increase the number of STEM teachers in the United States. As recently as 2014, 50 years later, the demand is increasing for STEM teachers. We're in the middle of a vicious cycle as far as STEM teaching is concerned. First of all, STEM job opportunities are increasing rapidly worldwide. The United States has one of the lowest STEM to non-STEM teacher ratios in the world. In other words, not enough college students are pursuing STEM degrees. Therefore, the pool from which to draw teachers is not very big. And for example, in 2012, the ACT board did a study of the 2012 high school graduates, and of 1.3 million students studied, only 76,000 or 6% wanted to go into education at all. And from that number of 76,000, only 4% or 33,000 wanted to be math teachers, and science, sadly, fewer than 1%, or only 731 out of 1.3 million were thinking that they wanted to go into science teaching. So the problem is there. If you look at a typical state, Texas is one of the larger producers of teachers in the United States. The pattern for computer science, mathematics, and science teachers is basically flat since 2005. There was a slight bump in the 29, 10, 11 era, but because of the economic conditions, that dropped off. And now in 2014, we're basically where we were in 2005. So we have a shortage, to be sure. STEM teachers also leave the classroom in high numbers. Over 40% leave the teaching field within the first 5 years of teaching. The conditions that most attribute to that are low teacher salaries, lack of classroom resources, the lack of autonomy granted to teachers, and the lack of effective professional development. So we have challenges in the area of retention of teachers. If we look at the recruitment barriers, there are several barriers, but some possibilities for ways to overcome those barriers. First of all, there's a limited interest in teaching careers. We saw that from looking at the ACT study. However, the hope that appears to be on the horizon that some universities are tinkering with is changing the focus of appeal and looking more at early childhood and elementary education with good science teachers at that level to get kids interested in science at a much earlier age. A second problem is the existing culture within the STEM discipline faculty. Typically, the people in the physics and chemistry and science areas do not really know enough about how teacher education works. So the clue there is for teacher ed faculty to develop partnerships and to work more closely with their science partners in order to have the students available and better prepared to become science teachers. And finally, most recruitment nets are too narrow. We tend to focus only on the students that we know and that are around. And so the literature suggests that we spend more time to widen the net, to do more recruiting on campus of undeclared majors and science majors that maybe aren't that happy with wanting to be a doctor but would like to teach future doctors, so we can look at that. And then the untapped field in general are community colleges. That population is increasing all the time, so universities can make more connections with community colleges. Retention is sort of the same bag. We don't do that great a job at retention, but there's some hope. The big one is the lack of proper training for new teachers as well as the professional development for existing teachers. The clues there is that the content must be more focused, rigorous, and coherent in the science fields. The instruction is a big challenge in science, but we know how to do that. It's a matter of working with teachers to make sure they implement correctly. The instruction must be engaging, in which students learn to investigate big questions in science and mathematics. They need to capitalize on students' early interests. We need to begin by finding out what students are interested in and what they know, and then work from there to keep that interest alive as we develop more science content. And then finally, the opportunity to engage in the practices of science and mathematics to keep that interest going. Lots of hands-on work. The classroom should be full of hands-on laboratory experiments and activities that keep the children motivated. And those are the kinds of skills we need to teach the teachers who are going to become science professionals. Salary is always a problem. I'm not sure there's an answer to that, but some school districts are experimenting with differentiated pay structures in which science and mathematics teachers receive a bonus if they stay in the school and stay there for a while. And then working conditions are problematic, and I think the clue there is to provide more staff development for administrators to help them work more closely with the STEM teachers to keep them active and alive and in the profession. However, before we think everything is negative, there's some good hope here. There is a slight increase in the number of undergraduates pursuing STEM degrees. So not only are STEM professionals increasing, the pool for future teachers is also increasing. There's a renewed interest at the national level. President Obama's Educate to Innovate initiative is calling for 100,000 new science STEM teachers in the next 10 years. And then Carnegie is co-sponsoring that event with 100K in 10 is what they're calling their initiative. The National Science Foundation offers dozens of grant opportunities to universities related to STEM teacher education. We happen to have a very good one here at Texas State in which that collaboration between teacher ed and science faculty is alive and well and showing a great potential. There is an increased interest in parental and community involvement in STEM education. One can hardly pick up a newspaper these days without some mention of some local community activity related to STEM, and therefore that interest is increasing. And finally, universities themselves are focusing more on STEM education, and many have programs that are designed specifically to try to increase that pool of teachers. How do we get there? There are several steps that I think are important as we try to improve this pool of STEM teachers. First of all, there needs to be a university top-level commitment to the need for STEM teaching, and we're seeing that happen at more universities. And then this leadership must persist throughout the organization to where everyone from the president down to the faculty member doing the teaching is aware that this is very important to this university. The data systems related to teacher ed must be improved, and is happening in many places where the data systems are there to collect data and to use that data to help inform teacher quality issues. Setting goals and managing results is increasingly important. We need to set meaningful targets for the increase in the number of STEM teachers and then measure to make sure we're achieving those targets. And then one that's interesting that we're seeing worked on quite a bit at some universities is refocusing how we educate teachers to become what we call intellectual thought leaders, where they're more than simply teachers. They are leaders in the field, and they're given special consideration and special treatment in their college preparation to have them emerge as leaders in STEM education. And then engaging and rewarding faculty for the good work that they do in helping to promote teaching. Nurturing school partners. One cannot prepare a great teacher without the partnership of school districts, and that's being worked on quite a bit. Community college partners are increasingly important, and I think that that's a great pool of untapped resources where we can build more STEM teachers for the future. And finally, expanding research on teacher effectiveness. We do a lot of work in trying to make sure that we are teaching appropriately, but we need to do more research to verify that what we're doing works. In summary, then, we have the need for more STEM graduates. That's out there in the world. We have the need for more STEM-prepared teachers. We see at the both federal and state level there's increased attention on STEM education. We see pockets of success across the nation. We need to focus our retention and recruitment efforts more sharply to make sure that we're achieving the results we want. And we need to have continued effort to spread the word from the places that work so that more preparers of teachers can join the fray, if you will.